every day.
Wow, what a game, what a game, what a game. I can't say enough about it. The Hawks prevail again. Refuse to lose is not only the mentality, but clearly also just kind of the motto, if you will, for this Atlanta Hawks team. Again, without Trae Young, I'm going to push that in people's faces as much as I possibly can, especially being what is it, the number one assist team in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken, without the number one assist guy in the NBA, I believe, pushing it in people's faces yet again, yet again. You are watching the official Atlanta Hawks postcast here with me, Tate. Tanisha will be back with us after the conclusion of the next game on tomorrow. How about that? Not only that, the front end of a back to back, including off of all things, right? Wow, fantastic win over the Philadelphia 76ers, where we show no brotherly love. 142-134 victory in Philly. Should probably let you guys know, first things first, of course, before we dip and dive into all things Atlanta Hawks. Immediate reaction post game from earlier tonight's victory over the Philadelphia 76ers. Tonight's episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to fanduel.com to get started. Now that we got all of that out of the way, and I'm gonna prime you by letting you know that we're going to talk about just what this game came down to. Very simple. I just thought that the Hawks wanted it more. Tough game, tough environment, tight situation. On the road again. Ironically and coincidentally enough, this is the first time this year that we saw this Sixers team have Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey all on the floor together for the first time this season. And I think it hasn't happened very many times since they acquired Paul George from, I believe, the Los Angeles Clippers. So clearly looking like they need to get some things kind of figured out, if you will. And of course, the Atlanta Hawks do in some ways, especially the turnovers tonight, fellas. Of course, for the Atlanta Hawks, 23, far too many. But anytime you can turn the ball over 23 times on the road against a team who I anticipate, I know it's been a little different over the course of the last couple of years, but that I anticipate to be a playoff team, and a guy that is one of the top leaders in the NBA in scoring, being Tyrese Maxey at 31 a game. I mean, you can do nothing but just tip your cap. And I think that, sometimes there's some people that don't get nearly enough credit. Quinn Snyder being one of them, the way that he's been drawing things up to be able to keep. I get it. It's about the Jimmys and the Joes that's taking you on to being able to win basketball games. Without them, coaches aren't putting the ball in the basket. But you got to give credit to Quinn Snyder, too. I mean, I haven't heard a lot of slander about how he's not a great coach. I haven't heard a lot of great praise about Quinn Snyder either since he's been in Atlanta, if I'm just being really transparent. But got to give him some credit for what he's done so far this year. Is he going to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year? Probably not. Is he going to be in the conversation for Eastern Conference Coach of the Year? Probably not. But what he has been able to do, what they have been able to do when the chips are stacked against them, and with, being without your star player, not only that, but being without the guy who everybody felt like, oh, we finally got a big. We finally got a guy in which whom can play the center position, over 7 feet tall. He's not like a power forward playing out of position, forced to play center. Onyeka Okongwu, Al Horford, who's the other guy that they had? John Collins-ish kind of guy. Like, no, this is legitimate center playing center that's not playing center because he's not playing. That's just been the situation for the Atlanta Hawks. They're coming away with victories on the road and everything else. Everybody knows about all of that. I just think that it was fantastic. And one of the questions that I really wanted to propose, because I really felt like that this team just kind of really wanted it more, you give Philadelphia credit because this was a tight game through and through, really a matter of just runs ultimately from the first quarter to the end of regulation. I think Philly got up first on by 9. Nobody led by double digits at any point. Of course, the Atlanta Hawks got up by 8 and won by 8, ironically and coincidentally enough. But saying all of that, even more so in overtime, where we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next segment. But that's what it came down to. I was curious, a little bit of a question I have for some people, and of course, he had a pretty good game on tonight. Of course, Dyson Daniels, where we've kind of been looking for that offense, looking for some shades and flashes of what we saw from him last year. And I get it; it's going to be a little bit different. The opposition is going to make changes, do their homework a little bit more, laser focus and lock in on you a little bit more, because it's clear to see that you're known for just more than your ability to play defense. And I think we're kind of learning some similar things from Nickeil Alexander-Walker this year too, right? That he's not just the ultimate, defender guy and a glue guy, if you will, 3-and-D guy, and all those kind of labels and titles that we like to try to put on these players. And he's a basketball player, like he's a real player. I get it. He hangs his hat on the defensive end. I get it that is kind of, his specialty, if you will. But because we haven't been seeing Dyson Daniels play as great, now I do want to preface that by saying, right, that Dyson, over the course of the last, 4 games, averaging 14 points a game, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 51% from the field. The reality of this is that he hasn't been remotely close to how good that he was last year. And sometimes you're just not going to surprise anybody in the second year of, a breakout, the previous year's breakout performance season. 19% from 3. I don't think anybody's, that's not worth running home to tell mom about, or, write home to mom about, or anything like that. But considering all things, a game on tonight, and I get it. 4 turnovers, far too many. Without a point guard, you got to have some sort of a ball handler. Jalen Johnson can't do everything, or can he? Dyson Daniels, 17 points, very efficient from 2-point range on tonight. Of course, 0 for 3 from 3-point range, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Pretty solid night for Dyson Daniels. Starting to get that floater game down, that teardrop just a little bit. And you can kind of see one of the biggest reasons behind why the Hawks even won this game on tonight is because their ability to share the basketball. They are number 1 in the league in terms of assists. They are the league leader. 13 times this season, they have had 30 or more assists. Turn that into 14 times this season now, by the way. And including that, going from a 9-4 record where they have had reached their average of 30 assists, from 9-4 to 10-4 now. So big time for the Atlanta Hawks. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why they won this game, is because their ability to stretch out defenses, ability to share the basketball, ability to be able to stretch the floor. And a lot of that, as you may or may not have heard in Dyson and Jalen Johnson's post-game press conference, if you will, or not press conference, but on the sideline with the reporter after the game, it's just more a matter of how the development and establishment of the chemistry amongst one another as teammates that they've been able to have with one another, because they've been on the road so much, has been a big piece and part of what has helped in the system in adding a number to the left side of the result column. Got to give credit to them, because it's clearly showing on the basketball court that they're spending so much time together, learning everybody's strengths, weaknesses, all of those different things throughout practices and so forth, and really learning where everybody likes the basketball, and is showing when you decide to be able to share it at such a high clip like the Atlanta Hawks has been able to do this season. So swept Philadelphia on last season, off to a really good start against them. But I wanted to finish this up and saying this about Dyson before we jump over and kind of talk a little bit more about tonight's game, including getting to the turning point after we pay some bills. But Dyson Daniels has had his hands full, not only all season, but even recent games, including tonight, including the last game, and of course the next 3. Of course, I know that he's not going to be guarding Jokic, in the 5th of the 5-game stretch that I'm going to mention here. But think about this: Donovan Mitchell in the last game, who's averaging 30 points a game, right? 5th in scoring in the NBA. That's Dyson Daniels' number 1 priority. Tyrese Maxey tonight, averaging 31 points a game. He's 3rd in scoring in the NBA. number one priority for Dyson Daniels right there. Cade Cunningham, which we saw them play them a week and a half, about 2 Tuesdays ago, something like that. I believe that was on the 20 something, doesn't matter the date regardless. 28 points per game for Cade Cunningham. He ranks ninth in scoring. Dyson Daniels primary defensive mentality and role and just responsibility, if you will, to be able to guard him. James Harden is going to be coming up after the Pistons game on tomorrow. 27 points per game. He's 14th. And of course, you got Jokic coming up after that on the tail end, I think on Saturday. This is just a tough slate, not just for the Pistons, but for Dyson Daniels, night in and night out, to have to go out there and defend the best player on the floor, which in a lot of cases is typically the guard. But saying all of such things, getting some of that help from Nickeil Alexander-Walker on the defensive side of the ball, Zachary Risachet as well, even in the front court, Mouhamed Gueye, who had a pretty good game on tonight as well, only averaging 6'4" and 48%, of course, in 14 of this month's November games, but impactful. I think we can all say the energy, and I think that he kind of gives that off a lot of times on the defensive end, occasionally on the offensive end. Zachary Risachet on the offensive end, occasionally on the defensive end. I like the way those two can kind of swap in and out. 13 points, only 2 missed field goals for Gueye on tonight, 50% from three. Really good night from him. Can't expect too much more. All of those I consider to be more so bonuses probably than anything else. We're going to talk a little bit about the better of OTs, which we believe that have every reason to believe that the Atlanta Hawks got the better of, and a JJ. What does that mean? I'll talk to you here on the other side of this break to tell you all about it. This episode of the Atlanta Hawks Postcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best time for sports. Happy holidays, of course, to everybody. You got your bowl games. You got big basketball matchups, collegiate side and the NBA side. You saw one on tonight with the Hawks and the Sixers. You got playoff pushes and the NFL side. All of these different things, it's all happening at one time. Creates a lot of anxiety, even for me. I love it just that much. While we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is no other place than Prize Picks. Has an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Creating lineups take less than just a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive for you, me, for everybody. You can even choose from huge range of unique stats, fantasy scores, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever is happen to be your strategy. Deposits and withdrawals are quick and easy, which keeps everything free flowing. Download the Prize Pick app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. This episode of the Locked On Hawks Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, very fast. Today was just one example of it. One big play and suddenly everything feels so much different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum, swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, or the momentum flips over for a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump in right there in that very moment. You got live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props updates as guys heat up. You can even bet the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and so much more. It keeps you locked in right here on Locked On into every single snap. Every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of all the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast. So can you. Sticking with you guys right here, at least for the next 5 or 6, 7, 8 minutes, somewhere right up in that range. Is getting kind of hot, man. Really excited about what the Atlanta Hawks is doing. Seems like it's only a 2-game. Seems like it's only really a 2-game win streak. I believe 2 or 3 game win streak for the Atlanta Hawks. Or 2 game now, if you can call such things a win streak. But doing so in the fashion that they have, I thought was fantastic. I really feel like in order for the Hawks to come away with tonight's win, they needed a collective effort on defense, and not just anything necessarily ridiculously crazy, but they needed to contain all the guys. And that's something I thought was going to be really difficult for them to do because there were so many that can really beat you. Philly can really beat you in so many different ways. I think once they get to a point where they start learning their rotations, getting Bede back into the lineup consistently, if there's even a such thing, getting Paul George back into the lineup consistently, if there's even a such thing, and not just relying everything on Tyrese Maxey and BJ Edgecombe to a degree, then I think that they can start putting some things together. The Atlanta Hawks caught them at the right time, and in which they were trying to still figure some things out. But give credit to the Atlanta Hawks for doing what the heck you're supposed to do, even in crunch and clutch moments, which we'll talk about here in a second, because there was just so many guys. I really feel like you just have to communicate, bring some help defense, help side defense, things like that, because of the number of guys that they have that can effectively score. You got Joel Embiid, you got Tyrese Maxey, you got Paul George. I think at one point in time last year, Jared McCain was on his way to looking like potentially the rookie of the year. You got Quentin Grimes, who may have been jumping back and forth to quite a few different teams so far in his NBA career, but has been productive and contributed a good bit to each and every one of them, as he did on tonight too. So that's just a lot to hold on to and a lot to keep up with if you're the Atlanta Hawks. Moving forward, let's get into talking a little bit about what made the difference in this particular game. What exactly was that turning point? She'll let you know here in a second.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
This being such a game, as we all watched, that really just kind of got off to a point where it's like, which team is going to be able to hold the more consistent run, right? Which ultimately ended up being the Atlanta Hawks. The Philadelphia 76ers had zero field goal conversions, right, for 5 whole minutes. This happened twice, by the way. After a Paul George floater, which made it 70-65, Philly up by 5. Maxey goes up for an and one layup at 3:19. Where the Atlanta Hawks was at that point just trailing by 4 points, 0 for 5 from the field for the Philadelphia 76ers. I just really feel like the Atlanta Hawks didn't really capitalize on that nearly enough. And that was probably the biggest concern that I had for the Atlanta Hawks at that particular time, because while the Philadelphia 76ers was not playing well, you usually see the Atlanta Hawks playing well. When the Atlanta Hawks weren't playing well, you see Philly playing well. In this particular instance, by the way, that being in the third quarter, the Hawks weren't playing well at all, where it clearly appeared that Philly couldn't score, Atlanta couldn't score either. They went on 2 4-minute field goal scoring droughts. Atlanta goes 0 for 4 from the field, by the way, 4 turnovers. You fast forward that into the fourth quarter, where Philly comes out there. They don't make any field goals, for another 5 minutes. Again, remember I told you, it didn't happen just once. It also happened twice. To start the fourth quarter, Atlanta goes on a 13-0 run, and that's where I kind of pretty much thought that the deal was sealed. Atlanta would take care of business, go on and move forward, not find a way for Philly to be able to make it back. Of course, there's this guy named Tyrese Maxey who finishes with I think like 44 or something crazy on tonight. Dude has been lighting it up and been really ridiculous this year. But in that particular span, Philly has 5 turnovers and go 0 for 4 from the field, while Atlanta had only 1 turnover and shot 50%. Well, you fast forward that, of course, into an overtime instance where Atlanta has 0 field goals in the very last 3 minutes and 17 seconds of regulation, as well as they had played throughout the fourth quarter. They finished the fourth quarter not very well. Tyrese Maxey, it's a big time three, forces into overtime. And then that's where, you obviously have this instance where Zachary Rissache ends up fouling out after already landing awkwardly and having to check out of the game. Eventually ends up checking back in. He fouls out. But then there's this guy named Jalen Johnson. I want to know, do you guys really feel, and we'll talk about the overtime stuff here in just a second. We can knock that out in 60 seconds. Do you think he's getting what he deserves? Do you feel like the media, we know, we get it here, Atlanta, Atlanta is going to do Atlanta. Atlanta is going to be Atlanta. But are we pushing it to the forefront of, enough? Do you hear these different shows and radio talk shows and TV show? Are they talking about Jalen Johnson? Now, if you don't talk about Atlanta, so be it, feel your own way. But are they putting enough attention on not only what Atlanta is doing without Trey, with what Atlanta is doing without KP, but what Atlanta is doing with guys who are in first time and second time uniforms or playing big minutes for the first time in Atlanta Hawks or second time in Atlanta Hawks uniform? That's the Mouhamed Gueye. That's the Luke. That is maybe not Jalen Johnson per se, but this is more so one of his bigger and better, one of two years of a breakout season, if you will, with more pressure on him, obviously, because we don't have Trey. But bigger minutes for Cressy. Only a second year for Zachary Rissache. He hasn't even played a season and a half just yet. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is another piece who has been obviously, really big for this team on both sides of the ball. Barely even played 21 games already so far, 20 games already so far. So I just don't feel like they're getting the attention, especially Jalen Johnson, who should, on all accounts, be on his way to an all-star selection. I'm not sure that there is any kind of pushback that anybody can make. And I hope that it doesn't have to come down to, well, he was snubbed, he didn't make it. But you try to use that as motivation. They put somebody else in. Now he's a replacement guy. He should be, I don't know if going on the first ballot thing and all that, but he should be right there as one of the guys that should be a solidified, no questions asked, hands down, hand over fist all-star selection this year. If not, I don't know what one looks like. We'll fast forward real quick. In overtime, I felt like the offense got a little bit stagnant, probably for both teams, especially for the Atlanta Hawks. But Atlanta ended up scoring 9 points. 3 out of their 4 converted shots were assisted on. And I think that's what ultimately catapulted them and pushed them into 2 overtimes. In that span, of course, Philadelphia, Tyrese Maxey missed 2 consecutive free throws, where Jalen Johnson, after missing 2 earlier in the night, converted on his 2 free throws. People make this free throw thing out to seem so easy. You're on the road and you're out there on the island. You're not in rhythm, because that's just typically running, catching the ball, whatever, shooting it. The crowd is cheering. You're waiting on the referee, while you're on that island to give you the ball. And this is for game right here. And you knock down and ice it. Something that Tyrese Maxey, who was having a fantastic night, just could not do. Obviously, it goes into 2 overtimes. And of course, last but not least, the turning point being Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which nobody pays attention to this particular piece, because everybody talks about Jalen Johnson's great night, in which it was a new career high, 41 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, 50% from the field, from 3, all of that good stuff. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker in that second overtime went in for a layup and missed it, followed up his shot, got the offensive rebound, then got fouled, sent to the line, and converted 2 free throws, where Atlanta also shot 50% from the field. I thought that was collectively my turning point. One of those things that people just won't give enough credit to. You have to kind of go back and see the way that Nickeil Alexander assisted in icing that game, and assisted in icing a game earlier. What was it? I think last week, with the steal at the end of regulation. So 3 turnovers by the Philadelphia 76ers there at the end of the second overtime. And that's pretty much how we got here. Appreciate everybody, man, for joining me, showing some love. I'm overly grateful. Another Hawks victory. Also for, subscribing, making the Locked On brand the #1 sports podcasting network. Overly gracious and appreciative of all of such things. Continue to keep it locked right here at the conclusion. After every single Hawks game, we're right here to break down all the action. Can't wait for tomorrow to have Tanitra back with me. We'll break down everything with hopefully the win, fingers crossed, over the Detroit Pistons. Coming up next, Locked On Hawks podcast with my dude Brad Rowland. Keep it locked right here. He got some really cool stuff to share with y'all and some great breakdown of tonight's action. Talk to you then. Peace up. A-Town down.